Welcome back, everyone. We're now going on to agenda item 4. It's on pages 5 to 270 of the circulated report pack and is here for decision. Mr. Chappell, would you please introduce the report?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Apologies for the delay this morning, guys, but I think it was really important that those discussions took place, and it should facilitate the meeting now going forward. So just going through it again, this is an application for the review of a premises licence. The review was submitted by the Council's Environmental Health Department, and it relates to the other place, 9 Ynysteri Road in Pontardawe, the licence holder being HD Pub Investments Limited. If I just briefly take you through the report, members will note that the grounds of the review are set out to paragraphs 8 through 54 of the report and relate to the licensing objective of prevention of public nuisance. Environmental Health have also submitted additional information in support of the application, which is attached at Appendix 1 to Appendix 5. Members will be aware that when an application for review is submitted, all the responsible authorities and other persons are then able to submit representations. In this instance, there have been a number of additional representations received. These are set out at paragraphs 89 through 98 of the report and include the legal regulatory officer, being the local authority licensing officer, the police licensing officer, and also a number of local residents, both in support of the application and in support of the licence holder. All these representations are set out in Appendix 6 to Appendix 15.
Excuse me, officer, interrupting. Just through the chair, I just want to check that Councillor Dacey is present with us. Is that okay? I can see that he is on screen, but Councillor Dacey, can you confirm?
Yes, I've been here for the full hour and a half week then. Yeah, I've been here all the time. I haven't been anywhere else.
Perfect. Thanks, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members also find additional information supplied by the licence holder at Appendix 16 to Appendix 23. At Appendix 24, there is a location and layout plan, which may be useful for members to refer to. And then finally, at Appendix 25 to 27, there's more additional information from the Environmental Health Officer. So members will note that there's been additional information circulated on Friday, and that related to discussions between Environmental Health and the licence holder in agreeing some appropriate conditions for the licence. They have now been, my understanding is they've been agreed. There is an agreement here which the documentation has been circulated in the room and will shortly be gone through by the licence holder's solicitor and displayed on the screens. It would of course be useful to spend a little bit of time going through that, Chair, when we open up at the appropriate time in the procedure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Neil. Do we have any questions for Mr. Chappell in relation to the report only?
I see no indications, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. We will now go to the applicant, Rachel Matthews, for her submissions, please.
Obviously, I'm not Rachel. Yeah, it won't take too long for this because obviously there has been agreement reached. And thanks for giving us the time really just to get to that point. I know it's positive that we've got an agreement and hopefully the proportionate and appropriate conditions will put on and resolve the problems. But I just think it's important while we're here is to keep in mind that this is a review hearing. You don't see many review applications from us because we do endeavour to work with businesses to keep them going. And this is the very last resort. And even though agreement's been reached and that's positive, please don't lose sight how much problems this premises has caused local residents at the time and effort officers have had to put into it. It is a real bad concoction. You've got the poor structured premises, which allows the noise to freely flow out, together with, I'm sure the respondents will also say, together with poor management at the site, has led to an extended investigation, and you'll see the bundle just how many times we've tried to engage and try resolving the problem. I don't want to dwell too much on it because there have been assurances made that the management that's been identified as being a key problem in this premises have now left, and we've been assured that more positive management and relationships with the residents will be engaged. And hopefully with the conditions here, hopefully the aim is to control, whilst the premises still isn't suitable for containing noise at the level. I know the pub want to operate. The idea is that the device will be there to control it to a level which with an advantage of, we have been out there has been an agreed level, and hopefully that'll be it. But I just wanted to say that even though it's positive, we've made strives to come to agreement. We can't lose sight why and how long it's taken for us to end up in this place. So I don't think I need to go over anything else, because you've seen all the copious amounts of evidence and letters back and forth. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Do you have any witnesses who'd like to address the committee?
We have a couple of residents here, but I'm unsure if they've been called as witnesses or whether they've submitted their own representations.
The residents here have submitted representations in their own right, so they'd have an opportunity to address the committee, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions of them in due course.
Thank you. So no witnesses from our side.
Thank you both. We'll now go to the license holder, please.
So thank you very much. So two thoughts just to raise with you, if I may. The first is that Gareth has kindly indicated that we have come to an agreement, and I think that's been circulated with you and your colleagues, certainly with your legal colleague. And so what I'm minded to do, first of all, is not actually talk to, if you will, the review. You'll be hopefully pleased to know that I'm not proposing to give you the 25-minute plus submission on this matter, 7 sides of A4 on my desk in front of me to take you through, because actually the most important point is the point of agreement. But before I go to the detail of those conditions, can I just pick up on a point that Gareth makes and makes fairly and address it in this way? We're sorry that we're here. It has taken longer than it should have done, and for that we apologise. And without the officers' significant collaboration, and I'm bound to say on behalf of my client, without the period of significant improvement since the matter was adjourned on the 12th of December, when I think someone was poorly, we wouldn't necessarily be in the position that we're in today. And all I can say to that is better late than not at all, and that probably is the positive way on which to proceed. So dealing with the conditions, I think the overarching observation about the conditions that is of most import before we look at the detail, and I'll canter you through them. Obviously, you can read them for yourselves and have a look at them. But the critical point is that they attend to, and of course it's right to say, provided that they are adhered to, all of the environmental health officers' concerns. They resolve effectively the review. And just in terms of the point about if they are adhered to, and so that it's been clearly said, we are not intending to do anything other than comply. And we acknowledge, and I'm sure if I say this in too many cases, eventually I'll come to regret it, because these words will come back to haunt me. Were we to not comply, then I suspect Gareth and the environmental health team would not take such a collaborative or cooperative approach next time. But what these conditions do is address the problem. And let's go through the problem. There are 2 bars, front and back, I've called them, and they're called front and back in the conditions, although top and bottom, and there's a number of rear and etc. Anyway, front and back, clarity. The back bar, in its simplest form, is not attenuated well enough to host the sort of entertainment that we have, for a number of years, I have to say, have hosted there. And there's an acoustic report, I think it's page 209. There's a summary of that acoustic report. I'm not planning on taking you through all of that, but that in simple terms says the roof isn't good enough and that music escapes that back room too quickly and then causes disturbance. And then there is the front bar. Since the last adjournment on the 12th of December, we've had entertainment on the weekends in the front bar, effectively on 2 of the 3 days of the weekend, Friday and Saturday evenings, more or less. And that has worked well. I'm not saying it's worked perfectly. I'm sure we'll be told it hasn't, if that's the case. But actually, I think we're all agreed that the front isn't the issue. What Gareth also touches on is that there has been a change of attitude. And when I make the apology for this being perhaps later in the process than you would have first liked, it's, and without in any way passing the buck, because I'm here on behalf of the premises license holder, but there has been a change of manager. The historic manager has now gone. And when I say historic, I don't mean as in historic recently, but he's been in ownership or management at this premises for a number of years. And you'll see, I'm not going to embarrass him by saying his name in front of committee day. You'll see his name is mentioned in the papers on a number of occasions. And certainly by residents, and the sense of perhaps attitude or resistance to change, whatever you want to call it, that I hope you can tell from the fact we've come to an agreement has changed. So going through the conditions document, then do you all have a copy of it? Yeah. So the first point is that under the Live Music Act, entertainment is deregulated, permitting everyone to conduct recorded music and live music until 11 p.m. to an audience of less than 500. And that is to be removed as a fundamental part of this review. So any entertainment that we now conduct, even to a small audience, and even if finishing before 11 p.m., we need to adhere to the various conditions that will then attach to that entertainment. And that's, if you will, the primary request in the application, and you'll have seen that. So then what we do is we go through those parts of the detail. So first of all, there needs to be a noise impact assessment conducted by an appropriate acoustic consultant. That's in the papers. There's a summary of it, as all respect to the acoustic consultant who drafted it. There's points at which it's pretty impenetrable, but there's a 2-page summary that you and your colleagues will have had a look at. And I think Peter, the licensing authority officer, makes comment in his representation that it was good to see that we didn't wait for the hearing to conduct that. That was undertaken with some tests with officers in attendance. The tests were purposefully on dry, non-windy days, so creating, if you will, a worst-case scenario from a noise escape perspective. And that I hope not only signifies the change in approach and attitude, but actually allowed us to change our approach and attitude, because when we saw the report, we understood where we were. So important that remains on the license as a condition. We're not shutting the gates after the horses have bolted. The report has been done, though, so you should know that. Then proactive noise observations to be undertaken. That's touched on actually in the acoustic report. It's very simple, really. We need to go outside and check that everything is being delivered to the standard that it needs to be delivered to. Then that needs to be recorded in written form so that officers can see that it has been undertaken, and they're entitled effectively to come and check that we have been doing that. I don't want to belittle that, but what effectively you would expect is something a bit like, it's a bad analogy, so forgive me for this, the loos in a motorway service station where you can see that someone has been in to check hygiene and cleanliness, and that there's a signature and someone has initialed at what time they went out and where they checked and so forth. And we will need a book in order to record that. No speakers to be located in the entrance or outside of the premises at all. And you will see some commentary about the beer garden and about noise escape. So those are not permitted whatsoever. Doors and windows to be closed. And then external areas, the license will permit for the festival weekend, when effectively all the pubs of Pontardawe have entertainment, bank holiday weekend, as you'll know. We're permitted to have activities outside then. That's it. No other outside activities permitted under this license. And we need to provide 28 days notice of the event, which candidly is going to be straightforward because we can notify the weekend effectively in this hearing and then the detail to follow. And then we've also agreed there is to be a schedule of residents who are to be engaged with by us. And that is to include all the properties on Francis Street and all the properties up to and including 36. That, for what it's worth, that extends beyond 100 yards. Part of our original discussions, it should be a 100-yard radius, and quite rightly, the officers wanted it to be specified. Then there's no entertainment until the impact assessment has been undertaken, and there's some more detail about the impact assessment. It might be, I'll just say in passing perhaps to your legal officer, if you're minded to attach these conditions, the one thing we haven't had a chance to do, effectively group them by topic, because we were drawing from a couple. So you'll find that the impact assessment is referenced through the document, the noise management plan. It might be an idea just to group them by topic if you're minded to agree them. I'll not take you through the detail of the noise impact assessment, but it's got to comply with UK guidance standards and so on and so forth. The entertainment has to be conducted in line with that impact assessment, and that is effectively supported by a noise management plan. If you jump across to the next page or down to condition number 10 in the document, if you're looking at it on screen, the noise management plan, 2 to be submitted, 1 for each of the front and back bars, because candidly they will be different, because the front bar will not be as onerous and significant as the back bar one for reasons that are only too apparent. That's to be effectively approved, and it then sets out in the various bullets in brackets all of the constituent parts of that noise management plan, so that you can see, and again, I'm not going to take you through that line by line, but it's to be a very comprehensive document. Those effectively they provide the structure. It's the detail. What does it mean? And that needs to be produced. And that will have to be produced within 21 days, effectively, of today. Otherwise, we lose the right to conduct entertainment until it's been concluded. But every reason to think that we will do that, and that'll be sent to the officers for them to look at. Just back to condition 7. Entertainment will be permitted in the back bar. I nearly called it the rear bar myself then. And that will be permitted on 1 day a month. And it will be permitted on 2 days a month in December. For reasons that, well, Christmas and New Year, it probably makes it obvious. The entertainment that's conducted in the rear bar, though, has to be conducted through the noise limiter, and that's effectively, again, set out in the acoustic report, and that will, when it comes to be set, no doubt have the officers come out just to check that it's been set correctly, and as was fairly mentioned to me this morning, make sure that it's tamper-proof and so forth. 8 and 9, I think I may have already touched on, windows and doors and so forth. And then we drop down to 11 under the noise management plan framework. And that is that we are to draw up and not only deliver, but also share a dispersal plan. The officers originally in the application made some reference to the feedback that they had from residents about the way in which customers are conducting themselves on the way home. And that is touched on. It's pretty brief, I have to say, but it is touched on by a couple of the residents who support the application for review. And initially, at least, the officer was looking to reduce the hours of operation at the pub. That part has now been dropped and is no part of the proposals today. And we are bound to draw your attention to the police representation. And obviously the officer is here, but that makes fairly plain that the police do not have any particular concerns about antisocial behaviour or conduct of customers at these premises. And that's also corroborated by the licensing authority, Peter, who is here, who effectively makes the point that it isn't something the authority have any record of, but it'll be for police and residents to address you on. I'm not proposing to derail what I'm hoping is a fairly pithy summary of where we are, but we are not agreeable to the hours being reduced, and we say unashamedly they do not merit reduction. The evidence about the reduction in hours, the evidence about the antisocial behaviour, in simple terms, isn't there. Certainly not to anything like an extent to merit the reduction. And you will see that we have produced some evidence, some of which is all of the detail when we have served drinks during a day and what time those last drinks have been served. And in its simplest form, that and the hours that are operated by various members of staff and so forth gives you an indication both as to the significance of the operation of the pub, which respectfully to my clients is not all that great. But secondly, you'll see the terminal hour that drinks are poured. So the suggestion that there are people carrying on that are related to our premises at 3 a.m. is just simply not accepted. It's just not right. And I'm not saying that there are not people carrying on at 3 a.m. I think there's reference to some cars being driven around at 3 a.m. by one of the residents. I'm not challenging that there may well have been cars driven around that part of town at 3 a.m, but I am saying unashamedly they're not related to us. And the officers in all reality corroborate and confirm everything that we say on that. There are a couple of gentlemen here who have come along, generously given up their time to act as witnesses. I'm not planning on calling them because I'm purposefully trying to keep this relatively, you may not feel like it as I'm still talking, but I'm trying to keep this relatively brief. But if the committee feel that that's a point that you want to explore, then we can perhaps get into that in due course in a little bit more detail. We are, I hope, in accepting the dispersal plan, recognizing that we need to make sure that we put our shoulder to the wheel in terms of the management of our customers outside. And that, I hope, is sufficient and is a fair balance that addresses the points that have been raised, but the degree to which they've been raised. This case, I think Gareth said, or you, Chair, said 270 pages, I think, of evidence. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that 269 of those are about noise escape from entertainment, and one of them, if that, would be about any more than that. And you may want to hear from the police in due course, but we say, you know, we got things wrong, but we haven't got this part wrong, and we certainly don't merit a reduction in our hours. There's a tiny administrative point for your legal officer, again, only if you're minded to accept the conditions, but there are 2 conditions on the face of the existing licence that effectively conflict with the new wording, and they'll need to be deleted. And I can give you the numbers of those, but I have mentioned that to the legal officer for the authority, and it's conditions 2 and 4 on Annex 2. And effectively what we've done is beef up those 2 conditions on the face of the new proposition. And obviously you can have a look at that. One's about windows and doors, one's about the noise limiter. All of the other conditions about CCTV, about Challenge 25 and so forth, all of those will remain on the license. There's no suggestion that they're to be removed. In this case, isn't really about those other various points. I hope that's a fair introduction to where we are. I have the managing director and the designated premises supervisor with me, but because we have come to an agreement, and unless the committee take a very different view, it would seem to me politic not to get stuck in, if you will, to the case that as we might have done if we'd been going ahead in December. You know, we have and the officers very much have worked hard to find a resolution. It's not my view that there is anything to be gained by us going back over he said, she said, or anything like that, as we'll risk derailing what's actually become a very agreeable, collaborative and cooperative discussion. So probably that's all from me, but of course you may have some questions.
That's great, thank you. Could we hear from your witness, please? You said if committee members would like to hear.
Well, you forgive me for saying that the point I think I was trying to make was that if we're all agreed, then it's not my view that we're going to do any good by going back over everything. But if the issue of the hours of the operation of the pub were a focus for the committee, notwithstanding the agreement with the officers, then I'd be happy to do it. So yes, of course, but only on, I'm only really proposing it on that basis. Otherwise, I think, candidly, I'll be wasting your time.
All right, we'll in that case, would the are there any questions for Mr. Phipps? Neil, do you have any questions?
I actually don't have any questions at this point. I'll probably come in later on, but for now, no. Thank you, Chair.
Environmental health?
Yeah, I'll have to word it as a question. Will you just explain to committee your intentions in terms of going forward with the management structure? In terms of, obviously, you've removed one manager, maybe explain the proposals going forward, who would be the individuals and whether there's intention of former management coming back.
No, so forgive me. I get the point at the end. No, the point, if I could make this fairly blunt, that I think that Gareth is being too polite to raise, if I may say so, is have we got rid of the manager in order to be able to tell you that we've got rid of the manager, only for him to turn up a week on Friday to everybody's dissatisfaction and disappointment? And the straight answer is no. He has left the business, and he has permanently left the business, and we understand is gainfully employed elsewhere. In fact, not even in the hospitality sector at all, as I understand it. I'm not in touch with him, but no, that's not happening.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions?
No, that's it, thanks.
Thanks. We'll now go to Nick Bailey, the police licensing officer.
Thank you, Chair. Members, on the 13th of October this year, I submitted in response to the premises licence review applications representations relating to the involvement of police licensing with the...
Sorry, Nick. I meant as in if you have any questions, sorry.
No questions.
No questions.
No. Members of the committee have any questions? Sorry, do any of the parties who are against the application have any questions?
Only one question to the legal team. The outside of the building, as the public are leaving our premises, you stated earlier that there needs something to be done around that area. The bouncers that they've had, or doormen, if you want to call them doormen, are normally in the building and not on the external side of it. If they could be more proactive in their approach to when people are leaving, so that they're not carrying bottles, cans, etc., out of the premises, which that has been the case in the past.
There's no issue with that at all. That the creation of the dispersal plan, which effectively is to attend to all matters of departure, and so that's cans, bottles, people, noise, everything. So there's no issue with us making sure that, you know, staff generally, it doesn't just have to be the door staff, are keeping an eye on the outside area. That's fine.
I'll go to Kate first. Could I ask Kate Nicholson to come in, please?
Hello. I just wanted really to clarify. I think it may have been a slip of the tongue. In fact, I'm fairly sure it was a slip of the tongue, but I just wanted to clarify. You said that it would be live music on the festival weekend and the bank holiday weekend. They are two different weekends. They follow each other. Festival weekend is always the weekend before the bank holiday. But I just wanted clarification if it was going to be 2 weekends or 1 weekend.
Forgive me, it's one weekend. If I said it wrong, I said it wrong unintentionally. It's one weekend, and the condition is clear. It's once.
Yeah, I suspected it was, but I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I will now go to committee members. Suzanne, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure the legal officer will steer me if I'm asking something I shouldn't be. But you say that the manager you've dismissed. Are you aware of if he's going to sort of take it to any sort of legal redress?
He wasn't dismissed. He's left. He's no longer in the he's no longer in the premises.
So there would be no grounds then. He's just resigned.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. That's fine.
Deal with the, if I may, the substance of the. There is no legal dispute or anything like that. I totally understand that. There's no legal dispute ongoing. That means he might pop up because of X or Y.
Thank you both. Councillor Dacey, do you have any questions at all?
No, not at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that. And lastly, the legal advisor.
Not at the moment, Chair, but I might have some later.
Thank you. Nick, now is your chance to give your submission.
Thank you, Chair. I was hoping to say good morning at the first time and good afternoon this time, but I'm slightly early. Members, as previously stated, I submitted representations on the 13th of October. They are contained in the bundle. You will have had a chance to read them, so I don't propose to read them in their entirety today. I will remind you, however, of what I believe to be the salient points. These relate to the incidents and meetings that have taken place. The meetings are documented. However, as I submitted representations, nearly 5 months ago, I felt it prudent to do a further search to see if there were any additional incidents recorded at the premises. There have been, which means there have been 2 additional incidents in 5 months, which means there are now 9 in total, 3 of which are not relevant. 2 report to the same incident during COVID. 1 relates to an allegation of assault by door staff. 1 relates to antisocial behaviour, and 2 reports were from the venue itself requesting police assistance with dispersing customers refusing to leave. As stated in my representations, this is not a premises that has attracted a high volume of incidents, as can be evidenced by 2 within a 5-month period since the current premises licence holders took over, and there have been reoccurring issues identified by staff in relation to the use of door staff, which appear to have been taken on board, and as such, I have nothing further to add to my original submissions.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Neil, do you have any questions for Nick? Yeah, all right, no problem. Peter, if you can give your submission, please.
Yep, my representation is included within the papers and attached as Appendix 7, so I won't go through that again. Following the agreement that has been shared, if Environmental Health are happy that the control measures agreed will promote the licensing objectives and resolve the noise nuisance problems, then I accept that this is the way for this application to proceed. With these agreed set of conditions, the enforcement of this will become a matter for us in legal regulatory services. I therefore think it's worth noting that the licence holders should be fully aware of what this agreement entails and what their responsibilities are going forward. I think it's critical that the manager, staff, or anyone who has a role of responsibility fully understands what is required. I believe this should or will form part of an agreed noise management plan. Take into consideration the Council's statement of licensing policy and the high standard of control that should be implemented, I support the conditions that have been agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I'll now move to submissions from people in support of the application. Mr. Pugh, would you like to give your representation?
I'm sorry it's had to come to this, and the amount of work that Environmental Health have had to put in to resolving these issues is quite sad. If the people had listened in the past and made the pub a venue where people could go enjoy themselves without destroying everybody else's enjoyment, it would have been brilliant. But unfortunately for that, I'm sorry to see it come to this. I hope from the financial team, their advisors have seen the problems that we've faced for a number of years. I've lived there 42 years and I've never seen it as bad as it is now. And I hope the licensing can keep this level and hope it's approached in the way it should be and looked after and made sure that it's good for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Mr. Nicholson, do you have?
Morning, afternoon, evening, whichever. Yes, I'm glad we've got some sort of movement on the issues that we've been suffering for quite some time. I thought I had a good relationship with the previous manager over some time, but we certainly saw a deterioration in more recent events. We have had issues in noise pollution. We've had issues with physical, environmental pollution. And it's just got to the point where we as residents have been vilified. And I think that's the politest word to use for having the audacity to live near a pub. Now, how dare we complain about the noise that's been going on? We've been told we should be banned from shopping in any premises in Pontardawe because we've complained about the noise. Well, the fact is, we didn't complain to the public, the people in public. We didn't ask for all music to be banned in Pontardawe. We've done so many things that we've been accused of doing just aren't real. And we're now suffering from people who point their finger at us, who shout and abuse us from living in that area. I mean, I can't afford to go live somewhere else. I like Pontardawe. I like that venue. But I'm sorry, why should I have to suffer because somebody can serve alcohol till quite late in the night, can be drinking till even later in the night, and then be making so much noise when they're leaving in the morning? I mean, it's just not been fair. And so I'm sorry it's ever got to this point. But the environmental health people have been working so hard to look to improve things that I'm really hoping this agreement gets agreed and implemented as soon as possible. But it's got to be working properly before it's just set up and running. Um, in fact, only on Friday I walked past the premises and the front door was wide open. So when are these doors going to be shut instead of being left open all the time? We have to put up with this all the time. So I'm sorry, I'm losing the point now. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. Does Kate Nicholson have submission, please?
Yeah, I'd like to sort of second and third really what my neighbours have said about the environmental health officers. They've worked tirelessly for this, but honestly, what a waste of resources. All we've ever asked is that they turn the music down. We've never asked for music to be stopped. We don't want music to be stopped. It's nice to live in an environment where there is live music in the area, but I don't see why I should have to turn the television up in the middle of the summer, shut my windows to be able to hear the television over music coming from up. So as long as everything is followed as it's in there, I mean, there's talk of putting limiters in. I'd hope that these limiters are going to be the type that bands, when they plug in their amplifiers, they are party to that. They're not the sort of amplifiers, so the sort of limiters that are limited only to the premises loudspeakers and PA system, that they will be covered by that. And honestly, if it all works and we have good neighbours again from the pub, then I can only support it. But it is dependent on them remembering that, yes, I bought a house near a pub, but they bought a pub near a house. Well, not a house, 2 streets. We're in the middle of a residential area. And they have to remember that as well as us being acceptant of living near a pub, which I'm completely acceptant of. That's how I'd like to finish today's comments for me.
That's great, thank you. Do you have any questions, Neil?
Only one, I think. I think there's pretty much an agreement in place as far as I can see. It's just potentially to the 3 residents here today that have made representations against the premises. You've heard the conditions that have been agreed. They relate to the nuisance that you've been experienced with noise. Are you satisfied that these conditions are going to resolve the issues? Therefore, are you supporting the proposals that have been made today?
I'm satisfied with them as long as they are adhered to. In the past, they've not been. There are parts of the last license which even the simplest things weren't adhered to, as in one of the gates should have been locked at all times, has never been locked. The windows are still open on the building when they still had music. Yes, there's no windows that can open on the one side, but there are on the other side. So when you put these parts into the license, brilliant, providing they're adhered to and checked on a regular basis, like he's already submitted that. So yeah, it's the way forward. and hopefully it works.
Do you want to come in as well, Mr. Nicholson?
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate that as long as this agreement is agreed and is met and maintained, it should be great. But I want it to be properly monitored and actions are taken as soon as we start getting issues, not just the festival weekend, all year round. We want it to be maintained and kept to a proper limit.
And I think Kate Nicholson, I think you mentioned in your submissions that you supported it. Are you supporting these proposals as well?
I support it if they are abided by. My concern, my deep concern, is today, or if they were to put music on today, I have no doubt they keep the windows shut. But that's because it's 6 degrees outside. When it's like it was last summer, 30 degrees, it's going to be very, very uncomfortable in there to have all the doors shut with all those people and all the windows. That's my concern.
Okay, thank you. And just a final question, if I can, to the license holders. Mr. Nicholson mentioned, when is this going to happen? When are these doors going to close? Obviously, there's a right of appeal against any decision today, so this decision isn't implemented immediately. Timescales for implementation, if it was agreed today?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a slightly legalistic answer, but the easy thing to say is as soon as practicable and as soon as we get it done. But the legally correct answer is following receipt of the written notice of determination, which will either be today or tomorrow, I guess, of today's, if the committee are minded to attach the conditions, then the appeal window is 21 days. From the feedback that everyone's given, I'm treating it as no one's going to appeal. So there being no appeal, 21 days hence, if we haven't done everything that we need to have done, we can't have any entertainment in its simplest form. So we are, forgive the phrase, incentivized to do the work and to effectively get sign off, or whatever the right language is, for the works having been done, which will allow us to continue it. Without it, we can't do it, because if we do it, we're breaking the law. I mean, it's a bit of a summary, but I hope that's a fair one.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Neil. Do environmental health have any questions?
No questions for me, Rich.
Thank you. Nick, do you have any questions?
No questions, Chair.
Peter?
No questions.
Do you have any questions?
No questions, sir.
Do any of the committee members have any questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Dacey's waiting there, so as well. So it's not a question, but it's just been mentioned that it's taken so long to come to this point, and I can really sympathise with residents. I've got one online and two here. It's not easy to stand up and say what you would like to have happen, and I'm bitterly disappointed that you have suffered the comments. I haven't exactly had the comments in the bundle, but I can surmise what might have been said. So, and it also, somebody said it's a waste of resources. As a member of the committee, I don't believe it is a waste of resources when the environmental department get their teeth stuck into something like this, because it shows the system works, and that residents in this county borough can be assured that if they are experiencing problems from licensed premises, that the system will not always work in their benefit, but it'll work to show them that everything legal that can be done will be done. I'm really pleased to hear that there's a change of management, and that there's also a change of thought pattern from the premises. I can see by the comments by the residents that they are willing as well to live alongside, as long as their lives can be made significantly better. and I'm just hopeful that they can see that the departments within the council, if agreed today, will have these conditions to back them up, and that should anything happen prior to, well, I'm hoping it never will, but if it did, then they would have the full might of all the conditions here to see to things straight away. And I'm really grateful to Environmental Health for actually asking for the review, because it did look as if it really needed, and to commend them for all their diligence and hard work, because residents then can see that the council are acting on their behalf, and also to the new management and whatever CEO, I'm sorry, I forgot your designation, that you are indeed have had a complete change of heart, and that you are also willing to work and live alongside your neighbours, and let's just hope that all works out. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Dacey, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one from me. Neil covered off the question I had about when it's going to be implemented. But it's just taken 20 years to get to this point. I think the first complaint I looked in the bundle was 2003. So let's make sure that they adhere to all these conditions, in my opinion. And so it's not so much a question, it's a bit of a statement, because Neil covered the question I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dacey. We'll now go to questions from those who are in support of the application. I think, Kate, did you have your hand up?
I did, but only really to sort of respond to my comment of being a waste of resources, council resources. It's only that I really do thank the council for having the resources there and utilising them. I just find it a waste that it was needed. That's my point. Not that it was a waste to use you. Not at all. They were excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Do you have any questions at all? No. So we'll go to the legal advisor lastly. Do you have any questions, Gavin?
Yeah, just one or two, please, Chair. It's really to environmental health and the premises. In respect to condition 6, subsection 6, which is entertainment shall be permitted in line with the noise impact assessment. All entertainment in the back bar is subject to the agreed noise management plan and delivered via the noise limiter set at an agreed level. Just to make absolutely certain, so that's an agreed level between environmental health and the premises, and that it can't be altered at any way, presumably without the written consent of environmental health. Yes? Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. Just want to check now everyone's had their chance to speak. We'll now move on to summaries. Start with the applicant, please.
Quite honestly, I keep it short and sweet because I think I summed it up to start with, and I think everybody's of the same opinion. It's unfortunate we've had to wait so long and get to this point to do this. And then the other side of the coin is that there has been agreement to conditions that, as been said, if implemented, we're confident can allow the business to operate and also the residents to have their peace and quiet. So I think that's the only way we can close it up, really.
That's great, thank you. Nick Bailey, please.
Yeah, I have nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, likewise, nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Persons supporting the applicant? Thank you. And the licence holder?
So yes, just briefly, it's we would say when every party, and we're all coming at this from a number of different angles and approaches, when everybody effectively is endorsing the document that's in front of you, I'd invite you to the conclusion that that really ought to tell you something very clear. I raise this, and I know closing comments are to pick up on points already mentioned, but there was some reference to a gate and a suggested breach of condition on a gate by one of the residents. I just wouldn't mind just flagging that, not part of really my closing, but on the license I've got, there's no such condition on the face of the license. So I just raised that with legal just to look at. But anyway, to go back to the substance of it, I'll repeat it. I'm sorry that it took this long, and we are entirely respectful of the comments that were made by a councillor. But on this, it is the point to finish. We have come to an agreement. We have to deliver to those conditions, but hopefully all of that brought together. And I, like the councillor, think that the system is evidenced as having specifically worked in this case all round, both in terms of tone and content, that if we deliver to the conditions, and in the politest way I can say it, this will probably be the last time you see it. So that's probably all there is to say.
That's brilliant, thank you. We'll now move on to retiring for, sorry, we'll now move on to the committee retiring for deliberations. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending and have a good day.